Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy October. Happy Thursday. And welcome to the Deep Roots webinar series, Curious by Nature. If you've tuned in with us before, you might be thinking to yourself, who is this lady? And what did she do with our beloved host, Cydney Ross? Well, for starters, my name is Maddie Ball. I am a program coordinator with Deep Roots. And Sydney's okay. Sydney is here. She is actually the guest expert of today's episode. And while it would have been very entertaining to see Sydney talk to herself as both the guest and the host, we thought we'd make it a little bit easier for her and have me host the episode today, which, by the way, I'm very excited about. I've been looking forward to this episode for months now, and so I'm super excited to jump into it. But before we get started, I have a few announcements to share with you. First, I would like to thank the Missouri Department of Conservation for sponsoring today's episode and for all the amazing work they do in our community and promoting conservation of the natural areas in Missouri and in the Midwest. And I'd also love to thank donors like yourself, Deep Roots, and all of our, oop, I just got a message that we cannot see it. Hold on one second. Sorry, guys, this is my first time hosting a webinar. All right, looks like maybe we can see it now. Yes? Awesome. Okay. And anyways, Deep Roots would not be possible without donations, generous donations from sponsors in our community. So we really appreciate all that you guys do to sponsor us, including attending this webinar today. We're really happy you're here. Cool. If you are looking to learn hands-on skills on how to manage your native garden, you can join us at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center on Tuesday, October 7th for our next session. We're going to be focused on invasive species identification, removal techniques across the grounds of the Discovery Center. So if you have bush honeysuckle, winter creeper, tree of heaven, or Bradford pears. I'm sorry to trigger you with those words, but this would be an amazing opportunity to learn how to manage them in your own yard. It's really wild that the growing season is already coming to an end, and we've had a tremendous, fantastic time at these sessions. So we hope you can join us at our next one, which again is on October 7th. Native landscape chats occur on the first Friday of every month, which is tomorrow for October. So we will be at the Discover Center Gardens from 1 to 2 p.m. tomorrow. You can join Deep Roots and the Missouri Department of Conservation for a leisurely landscape walk through these gardens. We're going to be focused on keystone species, on the importance of fall blooms, fall garden maintenance, strategies, and whatever topics you bring to the table. It's really an open conversation. You can bring your questions and hang out with a bunch of gardeners as well as us as we walk through those gardens. Hope to see you there. Finally, a quick reminder that registration is live for our native plant conference, Planet Native. Perfect for native plant enthusiasts and natural resource professionals. Our annual conference is back and will be on February 10th and 11th in 2026, which is right around the corner. Crazy. Right here in Kansas City. We're going to have 21 regional and national concurrent speakers who are native plant experts. Our keynote speakers are poet and professor Camille Dungy, author of Soil, The Story of a Black Mother's Garden, and Abigail Derby Lewis, the executive director of Citizens for Conservation. All right, our next episode is going to be on October 16th at our new airtime, which is 6 p.m. It will be a part 2 to today's episode, Native Gardening with Pop Culture Aesthetics, again with Cydney Ross as our guest expert. Today's webinar will be recorded. All resources are going to be available online. You can watch this recording again on our YouTube channel, on our website, or if you're on the go, you could listen to a recording on our new Curious by Nature podcast. Don't forget to drop your comments in the chat and put questions in the Q&A, which will be at the end of this webinar series, webinar episode. Okay, now it's time for what we've all been waiting for. Today, our guest expert is Cydney Ross, Deep Road's own native plant nerd. She's going to be combining her art expertise and native plant nerdism to discuss applying pop culture aesthetics to your Midwest native garden design. A little bit about Cydney. She joined Deep Roots in March of 2023 after working as a native landscape specialist at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center. Cydney teaches folks how to garden with native plants. She leads guided naturalist walks and our semi-monthly webinar series, Curious by Nature, as we know. Cydney has always had a naturalist spirit, with her earliest memories hiking, paddling Ozark rivers, camping with her family, and gardening with her mom. She earned her BFA in ceramic sculpture from Kansas City Art Institute in 2013, and she maintains a fine arts practice forging natural materials that she transforms into inks. So you can often find her drawing and painting birds with materials found in their habitats. And if that's not the coolest thing you've ever heard, you're crazy. If you get a chance to see these paintings, jump on that opportunity. They are stunning. Her endless curiosity, stewardship for the earth, and background in the arts encourages her to inspire folks to connect with nature. She proudly leads LGBTQ plus inclusive nature programs throughout the Kansas City area and is a self-proclaimed native plant nerd. Cydney, welcome to the virtual stage. Hi, Red.
Hey, Maddie. Thank you for having me. You did so great. This is awesome.
Thanks, Red. How are you doing?
I'm doing so great. I have been looking forward to this presentation for a while. If folks have hiked with me before, they know I say silly things like, oh my God, that's so cute, or that's so goth. And I've been dreaming about doing this for a few years now. So I'm so happy to be here.
Amazing. I am pumped. I've had like energy all day, so excited to see what you've got in store for us today. And I would love to know, as we were just talking about how you use your art background to inspire other people to connect with nature, I'd love to know how your art background initially sparked your interest in getting connected with nature and how it continues to do so present day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Maddie so kindly mentions, I'm an artist. That's my background. And so for me, I don't have a typical learning style. I struggle to like read textbooks. And so for me, it's really about getting outdoors and experiencing nature. So before I even knew what nature journaling was, didn't realize it was such a big thing in the natural, communities. But I would go out, go hiking and take photos of plants, and then I'd come home and draw them in my sketchbook and look up little notes. And that's how I initially learned. So I say that because it's important to know you don't have to be a scientist to understand and appreciate native plants and understand that what you plant matters. And you also don't have to be an artist to enjoy drawing them. Just saying, it's a skill you develop. So go out there, hit the trail, bring your sketchbook, bring your camera, and have fun connecting with nature. So thanks, Maddie.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, be sure to stick around for the live Q&A portion at the end of our program where you can ask Cydney your native landscape questions. There's going to be a pop quiz. Sydney's gearing up for it because the prize for the quiz today is this beautiful butterfly poster. Um, one lucky winner will win after answering the pop quiz question. So stick around for a chance to take it home. And that's it. That's all I have. Cydney, take it away. We're
Love
excited.
it. Yay. Thanks, Maddie. You're the best. All right, folks, let's get the show on the road. Okay, so I've tricked you all into joining us for a very fun and educational webinar today, Native Gardening with Pop Culture Aesthetics. So there are lots of reasons why we garden. I like to say, you'll select species depending on your gardening goals, and we garden for lots of different reasons. Some folks do it with the site considerations in mind, right? Maybe they're trying to slow water from coming into their spaces, maybe reducing their lawn. A lot of folks do it for the birds and the bees, right? I certainly love seeing all types of wildlife in my little urban garden here in Kansas City. And, some folks even garden for aesthetic purposes. And maybe it's a mix of things, right? We all have our reasons why we garden. But the thing to know is that your goals can help inform the species that you select, right? And so today, this is kind of a fun, lighthearted presentation that's chock full of facts about our Midwest native plants that happen to fit into two categories. I'll start with our first one, Goth. And so these plants are inspired by the theme of Goth, which is an aesthetic defined by finding the beauty in what others commonly consider dark, and often takes inspiration from literature and the arts while exploring themes of horror, romance, and the macabre. Black clothing and makeup are common traits of people who dress in the Goth aesthetic. Think tall combat boots, thick black eyeliner, piercings, corsets, etc. And though there aren't any naturally occurring black flowers, there are many that carry that goth vibe. It's truly a mindset after all. So if you want, you could additionally, in addition to the species I'm mentioning today, you could add some fun, spooky sculptures to your garden too. Like just don't take down your Halloween decorations, ever. Long live the 12-foot skeleton. So with today's presentation, I'll be covering two different palettes, Goth and Cottagecore, and talking about these different plants that I think fit into these aesthetics quite well. So starting off, we're going to be looking at the dwarf larkspur or spring larkspur, Delphinium tricorn. This is part of the buttercup family and seen blooming in the woodlands in spring. It prefers full to medium shade. I found these two particular plants near a creek and a fen at Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area. And though I saw it in a natural setting, I do see it sold at our local and regional native plant nurseries. It grows to be about a foot tall, maybe a foot and a half, and it has dark, trumpet-shaped flowers, which attract long-tongued creatures like hummingbirds and bumblebees, and butterflies even. And to me, it looks super moody and a bit mysterious with how rich and deep that color is, especially contrasting with the springtime foliage seen in the woodlands that time of year. It has silvery foliage with palmate-shaped leaves. It gets to be about a foot and a half tall, like I mentioned, and it prefers moist to average soil. And kind of a fun fact, but the word tricorn, which is part of its scientific name, refers to the three-horned fruit pods that split in late summer. One thing that is very goth about this plant, besides just kind of like its moodiness existing in this space, is that it contains poisonous alkalines that deter deer. So also just a note for pet owners, maybe you have a dog or a cat who love to eat plants, you might just a little caution there, be aware of that. Moving right along, one of my favorite plants, which I'll try not to say that about every single species we look at today, but this is blue false indigo or Baptisia australis. This is the gateway to the native plant world, in my opinion. It is a large clump-forming herbaceous perennial that looks shrub-like but is not a woody species. It is in the legume or pea family, and it gets to be about 3 feet tall and 5 feet wide at maturity. So when you get these little tiny plants like new into your garden, remember they will grow eventually and take up the space that they deserve. And also it takes a while for this particular species to get established, sometimes up to 5 years. So you do have to be a little patient. It has stunning clover-like blue-green foliage, followed by this bright, like blue-violet pea-shaped flower. It's so bright in the springtime. I swear it makes my eyeballs vibrate. Huge fan of this plant. And so, like I said, this is a great plant, but not only for spring, it's gorgeous year round. So you can see here kind of the seasons of change. We've got the spring blooms that happen about May, June on the left, followed by the seed pod. So once insects like bumblebees, who are strong enough to kind of open up that flower and get in there and get that nectar, once they've pollinated those flowers, they turn into these really striking seed heads that you see there in the center. And those seed heads and the foliage will remain through winter for the most part, but you can see this really cool shift with the foliage. Unlike most of the rusts that you'll see in the landscape this time of year, like in November, December, even in January, you will see that blue false indigo, Baptisia australis, shines bright like a little goth baby, which is a quote that I said for the Martin Times once. So I stand by it. I stand by it. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I do want to make a note though that to be cautious about common names, right? Common names are arbitrary. There are several common names for any individual species. So I like to say, refer to the Latin. You don't need to know how to pronounce it. It's a dead language after all, but do know how to refer to it so you make sure you're getting the right plant, because there's another species, false, or rather indigo bush, which is a small tree or shrub, totally different species. It's an amorphous species. It has no relation to the blue false indigo, but it can get kind of confusing when you go to a nursery and you're just looking for the common name. So you don't need to know how to say Latin or pronounce it. Just make sure you know how to reference it. Also, other Baptisias do this too. Like they have the cool, like silvery bronze leaves with the dramatic seed heads. It has this one, the white false indigo, again, common names, am I right? It has a different structure compared to the blue false indigo. This one is a little more, has like higher shoulders and a little taller, whereas the blue false indigo is more like a rounded kind of shrub-like shape. So anyway, they're all stunning. I love them so much. They do prefer full sun. So just think about that for your garden space. They will need anywhere from 6 or more hours of sunlight during the day. So just keep that in mind as you're planting your native garden. Also, so goth, right? And another reason to leave your leaves up in the winter time, not just for the aesthetic beauty that we see here, but to support our wildlife like solitary bees that might be sleeping in those stems over winter. All right, check out this prickly friend in the carrot family, rattlesnake master, Euringium yucifolium. Again, this is also a full sun prairie species. It is stiff and upright, sometimes reaching 6 feet, but more often I see them around the 4 foot or so height in a garden setting. The flowers are super interesting on this one. So here you can see the bottom right with that beautiful green June bug on it. That's when the flowers are just starting to form. They're kind of like a creamy light green color. They're super spiky, and as they progress, they have a little more white to them, almost like a puffball, but they're still spiky, right? And despite that spikiness, they are a super pollinator magnet. I see bees, I see flies, I see butterflies, I even see my favorite, wasps. It definitely needs a lot of direct sun. Again, think prairie where there aren't any trees above it. I do see that it tends to lean in landscapes where it's reaching for the sun, right? So kind of keep that in mind as you're planting your garden. Oh, and another cool thing about this plant is that the leaves can be used for cordage or rope making. So that's super fun. If you've ever been to the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center, maybe you've taken a class with one of the naturalists like Pat Whalen, he teaches you how to make rope using the leaves of this plant. And historically, some of the oldest sandals ever made were found in a cave in Missouri made from rattlesnake master leaves. Super cool. So consider adding this plant to your landscape if you've got a nice full sun situation. Also, I'll note kind of about the growing habit. Besides the upright structure, it does tend to seed well. So if you want to see more rattlesnake master in your garden, leave the seed up through winter, right? We already talked about the benefits of overwintering insects in the stems, but also the seeds can be eaten by birds, and it allows them to spread in their garden. Now, if you don't want to plant to spread, then do the opposite. Remove the seed head shortly after it flowers so it doesn't continue to spread. All right, bloodroot, Sanguinaria canadensis. Sanguinaria meaning sanguine, meaning blood, or optimism during an especially bad situation, depending on the context. This is a spring ephemeral plant found in the woodlands and is often not sold in stores. Sorry, folks. But I think it's important to meet this great plant and say hi to it in nature. Quick PSA, please do not poach plants from the wild. We need our wildflowers in our wild places. Instead, go to a native plant nursery, check out a Deep Roots native plant sale, or do some trading with your friends who are also native gardeners. This perennial flower features white blooms that are a little over 1 inch across with many yellow stamens. The leaves are super interesting too. As the flower emerges from the earth, it's wrapped in a single palmate, deeply scalloped leaf, and it's kind of a grayish green. And when the leaf opens up, it reveals the flower inside. It's super cute. I often see cute little solitary bees pollinating it, and it pops up on rocky ridges in the woods in early spring before the canopy fills out with leaves, which is what makes it a spring ephemeral, right? You'll hear that term throughout this presentation and perhaps in others that you may have attended in the past. And what that means is these early spring plants are taking advantage of that sunshine before the canopy fills out with leaves, like you can see in my background behind me. So additionally, besides having really cute kind of square looking flowers, each bloom only lasts about a day or so. After that, the plant dies back completely, waiting resting in peace until the following spring. It gets its name, bloodroot, from the reddish orange juice produced in its tuber. And as an artist, I have ethically and sustainably harvested just a little bit of root in the past to do some ink paintings with, and it's really beautiful. So not only has it been a plant used and currently used by Indigenous people here in North America, but it's still used today. It's pretty cool. But again, make sure you're getting this plant from an ethical source. All right, now for a fun woody species, the pawpaw. This is an understory shrub or small tree that is found throughout the Midwestern woodlands. It has a slender trunk and simple leaves that alternate up the stem. The zebra swallowtail butterfly depends on the pawpaw as its host plant. There at the bottom, you can see a caterpillar feeding on the leaves. And similar to milkweed, pawpaws have a toxic chemical which the caterpillars store and deter birds from eating them. And if they do eat them, they get really sick and regret their decisions, I bet. You can learn a lot about who is pollinating a plant based on the flower's shape, color, scent, and time of year it blooms. So the pawpaw, as you can see here in the top left, has a dark maroon flower. It's, oh gosh, sorry, my cat is moving here. Okay. It's got that dark bell-shaped flower. It looks like dried blood. It's kind of a maroon color, again, super goth. And it blooms in an early spring, probably around like April or so. And get this, the flower smells like rotten meat. Okay, so it's not like you walk in the woods and you're like, what's that stank? You have to go up to it and really smell it, and you kind of get that rotten, carcassy odor to it. But it's super effective for attracting those early spring pollinators. And I've heard that some people who want to have more production of pawpaw fruit, they'll actually hang like dead chickens in their woods to attract those early spring pollinators, which are flies. That's right, folks. Flies are super important pollinator species. So don't be hating, be appreciating. They come up in early spring when we have those spotty warm days. They can emerge quickly. They have a short lifespan, and they go looking for those what they think are thawing carcasses. Gross, but kind of cool. So this plant has kind of tricked them to help them out by pollinating them. So that's interesting. And this plant, again, I think is really beautiful throughout the entire year. So we've seen the blooms in spring. You see the foliage there in early summer. And then when we get to this time of year, which we're at the beginning of October, it produces a fruit, which you can see in the bottom left. It's that green potato looking fruit. It hangs up in the top of the trees. And some folks describe it as tasting somewhere between like a mango, a custard apple. It is in the custard apple family. I will say it is a little slimy. So I do recommend you try it. Some folks love to use it in like pawpaw bread or sorbet. I would love to try it in sorbet sometime. So definitely try it. But I do like to say, folks, be sure you're, again, harvesting things ethically. It's a big bummer for me to walk in the woods in the fall and see folks carrying out grocery sacks full of this fruit, which it's like, I want you all to try this fruit, taste the fruits of the forest. But remember, our wildlife needs it a lot more than we do. So don't be a jerk. Take a little, enjoy the fruits, and maybe consider planting a whole pawpaw grove in your backyard or front yard. That way you can have all the fruit that you like. All right, now we are going to focus on wild ginger. As above, so below. Meet wild ginger, Asarum canadense, another friend seen covering the woodland floors, along with that spring larkspur, pawpaw, and bloodroot I mentioned. This herbaceous ground cover features downy heart-shaped leaves, and their flower is located at the base, often beneath the leaves. It kind of looks like a tipped over like vessel. It's got these purple little points that come out. And just like the pawpaw, the flower also looks like dried blood. Very goth, of course, very macabre and horror inspired. And it also, like the pawpaw flower, emits a light, rotten flesh odor. Again, attracting those early spring pollinators like our flies and beetles, those that help decompose carcasses. So another cool evolutionary advantage for this plant are its seeds. They have a fleshy appendage called an elaiosome that is attractive to ants. the ants will dance off with this seed, known as myrmecochory, where they consume the elizome underground. It's full of fats and proteins and all the things that they need. And once they've eaten that little fleshy appendage off the seed, they bury the seed, leave it underground, and continue to it plants throughout the woodland. So kind of a cool evolution and just like interconnection between these two species. If you're using this plant in a garden setting, it prefers good shade, or at least shade from the hot afternoon sun. As a short ground cover, it's great for filling in around taller species. It also loves having leaves dumped on it in the fall and over winter. So don't worry about them having issues coming back up in the spring. It's super cute to see them pop up. Actually, the image is here in the center. That is a photo from my mom's garden where I planted this, and it emerged very nicely through like 3 or 4 inches of leaf cover. So it has no problem. It's adapted to handle those leaves that come down in the forest. And it just looks so cute. I also wanted to just share with you a couple fun goth friends that you might see in the landscape this time of year. Here on the left, we have the funereal dusky wing butterfly, which is seen in a garden setting, thanks to my friend Matt Garrett. Super cute, super goth. And then the two spiders on the right, I often see when I'm walking through the woods in September and October. So at the top, we have the spined Microthena gracilis, which I love. I considered having that as my Halloween costume this year. The abdomen looks like a cathedral, like a Tim Burton cathedral. Just absolutely love it. And then on the bottom right, we have the arrowhead spider. Also very cool. It's giving like Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, if any of you are familiar with that. Big fan. So lots of goth friends, both animals and plants alike for your garden. Okay, now we're going to shift gears to cottagecore. Cottagecore is a romanticized life made famous by the internet. Think of escapism that contains cozy natural gardens with handmade qualities. I imagine like walking through a prairie barefoot in a sundress, and then I get itchy thinking about ticks and chiggers. You can still have that that whimsical aesthetic in your garden, sans ticks, of course. But I imagine a nice mixed meadow vibe for this type of garden, a little less formalized. So like clumps more interdispersed with grasses, maybe like little blue stem or prairie drop seed. And if you're trying to do this in your front yard or like public facing space, you can still have an informal garden and apply cues for care like edges or edging, making sure plants aren't flopping over. So you can have it both ways. You just have to show the intention and make the effort. So in addition to these flowers I'm going to talk about, you could also consider adding things like bamboo hoops, gnomes, stone pathways to add a little extra whimsy to your garden. Maybe even a cute wrought iron love seat where you can admire your garden from and drink your tea. Okay, to kick things off, we're going to talk about pale purple coneflower, Echinacea pallida. And okay, so there are like several Echinacea species that I could have added here. And frankly, why not add all different types of Echinacea to your own garden? It's like expanding the bloom time, but each has their own different qualities. But for now, we're just going to focus on one that I find especially charming, which is pale purple coneflower. This species is found in high quality prairies like Kill Creek Park in Olathe, Kansas, where I took this photo. It blooms around anywhere from like May to July. Typically, I see it at peak in June, like mid-June. And let me tell you, like this particular area is, speaking of whimsy and romance, it is just absolutely beautiful. If you haven't been out to this high quality prairie out in Olathe, again, Kill Creek Park, highly recommend you check it out. It's beautiful all year round, but I especially love going out there in June to check out the flash of pale purple cone flowers. And for those listening, here's the scene. An expanse of flowy grasses like prairie drop seed with hundreds of pale pink petals peeking out around a dark chocolate pointy cone. If you're there at dawn or dusk, they seem to glow in the landscape. And being a prairie species, the pale purple coneflower prefers full sun, so 6+ more hours of sun. They grow to be about 4 feet tall in early summer. And in a garden setting, I typically see it blooming after glade coneflower, but before the regular purple coneflower, Echinacea purpurea. So again, think about like adding multiple Echinacea species to your garden. That can you can extend that kind of visual quality, and of course, the ecological services they provide to our wildlife. And not only are these flowers absolute butterfly magnets during their bloom, and then goldfinch magnets for the seed in wintertime, but in addition to that, during the winter months, there are slumbering little bees, all cozy up in those pithy stems, which is just another reason to leave your leaves this fall, right? Leave your plant vegetation up. It's beautiful, and you're helping keep little creatures like our solitary bees nice and cozy during the harsh winter months. This flower, y'all. When I saw this plant for the first time, I immediately thought, wow, this is cottagecore, like encapsulated. This is what this is. It has long oval leaves with an upright stem adorned with several white tubular shaped flowers. It blooms in late spring, early summer, around May or June in the Kansas City area. You can see here a certain special someone loves to pollinate it.
Bumblebutt. 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 Bumblebutt.
I was looking for a photo of bumblebees with foxglove beard tongue and found this gem that I took a few years ago to promote our webinar. So just kind of a fun thing I wanted to share with you there. So if you like bee butts, you're going to love this plant. By fall, it has delicate bell-shaped capsules. They're kind of a rust color, which holds its seed. I love this plant year round, but I'm always tickled to see its semi-evergreen leaves in the winter time. So in warmer climates, it stays even more verdant during the winter months. But you can see that in Kansas City as well. And the leaves at that time of year, it looks like a watercolor painting. It's got like dark greens and burgundy. It's really beautiful. You can also easily divide this plant in the fall or spring to spread it out throughout your garden. And again, it's another prairie species, and it tolerates clay really well. So if you're one of those folks who's like, I don't know what to plant, I dug into the ground, I could make a pot out of the soil in my front yard, you might consider adding Penstemon digitalis, or also known as foxglove beard tongue, because it is a nice little clay buster. And though it prefers ample sunlight, again, think prairie, it can handle a little shade as well.
Bumblebutt. Bumblebutt.
Sorry about that. Okay. I feel like I say this about all the Midwest native plants, but I love this one. Y'all, this is Missouri evening primrose, Anothera macrocarpa, and it just looks like a billowy piece of pale yellow fabric. I love it. It is a ground cover species, only getting to be about 1.5 feet tall. It's naturally found on shallow rocky glades, but I find it does well in my clay-based soil here in Kansas City. It's also the namesake for my first public garden at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Discovery Center, Primrose Prairie. So if you've walked with me out there, these photos are actually from that garden, and it blooms in about May, June. It really kicks off. So again, another lovely spring plant. And I chose this plant as the namesake for that garden. Well, because I'm a nerd. I love that it is pollinated nocturnally by our sphinx moths, and each bloom only has one bloom a day. So it'll open up at dusk, it'll bloom at night. Again, as you may have seen in our intro, all these pale flowers, whether they're white or like a light yellow or light pink, the light from the moon and the stars reflects off of them, making it easy for our nocturnal pollinators like moths, some flies, even some wasps that can come find it and pollinate it. It's quite attractive. I will say it is a pretty prolific plant, or moderately prolific, so be sure to pair it with other gregarious species, and perhaps along the edge of your planting because it is shorter in stature. And then this time of year, if you come visit the gardens, like join me for a walk tomorrow at the Discovery Center, I'll show you how cool the seed heads are. They're super sculptural. So again, little shorty, full sun. It does well in different types of soil conditions. So yeah, it's a winner. I would recommend it. Uh-oh, another cutie, Jacob's ladder. This is Pulmonium reptans, and this is an early spring bloomer found in the woodlands. The photo here was also taken at Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area in April near the larkspur I mentioned earlier. It has bell-shaped periwinkle flowers with white anthers that pop out in the center. It's a short, bushy looking herbaceous perennial with stunning foliage that moves gently on the wind. You can see that the leaves here, oops, the leaves here are smooth oval shaped that alternate up the stem. The leaves are also considered pinnate, which refers to the feather-like appearance, which you can kind of see in this little video. Also, listen to the bird songs. It's so lovely. This is like, again, a harbinger of spring. It does really well in rich, moist soil. You can see it's along a creek bed, but I see it doing well in garden settings. Like we have it at the Discovery Center in our rain garden. It's not really a rain garden, but there are plants in there that serve that way, and this plant does quite well. I will say again, though, it is a woodland species, so make sure you're placing it in your shade garden or that it's at least shaded by other plants in the hot afternoon sun. It does not like the hot, hot sun. All right, folks, it wouldn't be cottagecore without a native rose. Am I right? This is a plant I'm not very familiar with, I will admit. I bought one this year and I still need to get it planted. That's on my to-do list after I see Chapel Run this weekend. But fall is a great time of year to get these plants in the ground. So be sure you're planting native plants now. So this climbing rose, it reaches between 6 to 15 feet long, right? So it's a climber. So you want a trellis or a fence or something for it to navigate up. Otherwise, it'll probably crawl over your other plants, I imagine. And like a typical rose, it has dark green, sharp pointed leaflets. The blooms are 2-inch pink flowers with many yellow stamen in the center. So lots of bees will be coming in, landing right there in that pollen, collecting it in their little pollen baskets and drinking the nectar. The flowers tend to cluster, but open maybe like 1 or 2 at a time. And it's found naturally in open woodlands and thickets, right? This is not to be confused with the non-native invasive multiflora rose, okay? So that is a separate species. It is a rose. It is not native, and it does impact our environment by outcompeting our native plants and not providing the correct nutrients for our native wildlife. So instead, get this one. There's lots of roses out there, obviously, but I'm super excited to add the native rose to my already existing rose garden that I inherited at the house I live at. So folks, for anyone in the audience, I'm super curious, are you growing this plant? And if so, let us know about your experience in the chat. Would love to hear from you. All right, folks. Another harbinger of spring. Meet Virginia bluebells. What a stunner. I love the drooping pendulum-shaped blooms on this plant, which can vary in color. So they'll start off kind of this pink and usually turn blue or periwinkle, but sometimes you'll even find they stay pink. Super cute. Also, it has large draping oval leaves that are a bluish green color. It's a clump-forming herbaceous perennial that gets to be about 1.5 to 2 feet tall, and also a spring ephemeral like bloodroot. So meaning it shows up in the woodlands early spring, it blooms, it gets pollinated, and then it dies back completely midsummer, waiting until it can return the following spring. You can find it in rich woodlands and river plains. And I recently learned from Merv Wallace at Missouri Wildflower Nursery that if you're having trouble getting this established as like a plug or a little pot, consider broadcasting seed in the wintertime into an already prepared garden bed. He says it grows well from seed. So keep that in mind. But if you do add this plant to your garden, make sure you have other plants that come up after nearby. Otherwise, you may think you have an open spot in your garden and come to realize that there's a dormant plant there when you dig your hole. Ask me how I know. All right, last but not least, rose verbena. Naturally found on woodland edges, prairies, and glades like Rocky Point Glade at Swope Park. This is a creeping plant that doesn't get more than 10 inches tall, but oftentimes I see it shorter. Again, it has chapel roan pink clusters of super fragrant flowers. Like you can smell its perfume on the wind in spring. Absolutely beautiful. I love this plant. It will continue to bloom off and on through November, and it forms a dense mat of deeply toothed leaves that remain evergreen through the winter and warmer climates. It is an annual where winters are harsh, and a perennial where we have milder winters. I just learned this from Ladybird Johnson Wildflower, which I thought was interesting. And I think this is probably why it shows up sometimes in gardens and then disappears and pops up in other places. I think it's just figuring out its situation in our climate. So I planted it around the edge of the stairs leading up to my house so that people can not only appreciate those little short blooms, but it smells amazing when they walk up. So that's something you can consider for like a sensory garden, or if you just want your front yard to smell really lovely. And of course, it's a super attractive to pollinators. So I've also seen like suggestions for part shade for this particular plant, but I've also seen it in full shade. I do think it fares better if it is in full sun, if it has at least like average to slightly moister soil. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, as a reminder, please source your plants from nurseries or trade with friends. Take photos, not flowers, from wild areas. And just as a reminder, Deep Roots hosts native plant sales seasonally in the spring and fall, where you can get your native plant kick. And lastly, if you enjoyed today's episode of Curious by Nature, be sure to join me on October 16th at 6 p.m. for part 2, where I'm going to be covering the aesthetics of mid-century modern and tropical vibes utilizing Midwestern native plants that you can add to your own gardens. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our Q&A.
Amazing presentation.
Thank you so much.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. We've got a few questions in the Q&A. If anybody else has questions while we're going through, feel free to pop them in there, and we'll get to them. And remember, there's a pop quiz coming up too.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Our first question is from Lori Jafar. She wants to know what are the other gregarious plants that would be good to pair with Oenthera, that primrose.
Oh, yeah, Missouri evening primrose, Anothera macrocarpa. Okay, that's a great question. So thinking about like the sociability of plants, I would rate on a scale 1 to 10, 10 being like, oh my gosh, I'm the life of the party, to 1 being demure and introverted. I would put Missouri evening primrose at like a 6 or 7. And I have paired some other things with it, like some taller, later species. Thinking about primrose prairie garden, some of the coneflowers do really well with it. Same with some of the clump forming grasses. Like I have it paired with eyelash grass and side oats grama. Those can work together really well. Later in the season, I even have some blazing stars paired with it. So, just making sure you have plants that are a little bigger, a little stronger later in the season. They can handle each other. What I wouldn't pair with this plant, and this is my own experience at Primrose Prairie, are things like butterfly milkweed or pussy toes. They're just a little too demure. They want their space. And I think it may have something to do with the shape of their roots or root morphology. So those would be my recommendations there.
Awesome. Okay, Julie E wants to know, what's your take on fall planting when there is no access to water over winter or into early spring?
Really great question. I love fall planting. A little secret, our native plant nurseries tend to have more stock in the fall than they do in the spring, okay? Because they have the whole year to grow things out. Now, if you're concerned about watering, my advice for a new garden is to always water deeply the first 2 weeks. After that, they should be fine. Now, it's a little tricky in Kansas City this time of year because September, we can have really hot days, like, in the 90s, and then we can have really cold days. And so I don't recommend you plant during a 90-degree day. Try to wait till it gets a little cooler. Deeply water those plants for a solid 2 weeks. Like go out there, water it, put your finger in the soil the next day. If it's still damp and wet and you've got mud on your fingers, you're probably okay until the next day. But the first 2 weeks, by watering it consistently, allows those roots to get established. And also, Missouri is typically in drought during the winter time, but hopefully we'll get some snowfall and it'll be okay. But fall is a great time to plant. I think more people should take advantage of fall for planting. It's just a great time of year to get some more plants in the ground.
Mm. I think it was one of our volunteers, Shelly Shipley, taught me a phrase that she said she may have learned from you. I'm not sure, so I want to check. And maybe it depends on what season you plant them in. But it was for native plants, you water every day for a week, every week for a month, every month for a year. Is that
I
what?
love that. I haven't heard that phrase, but I think it just really depends on your situation. Once I get a garden established, like I didn't water my garden at all this year, period. Nada, unless I like put a new plant in. I'm of the mindset like, good luck, babe. Like I put you in the ground, I take care of you for a little bit, and then you're on your own kind of situation. So, but I love Shelly Shipley. She's one of my favorite volunteers. She's so great. And that's a really good turn of phrase, but I think you could even water less in your native garden most oftentimes.
Kind of in a similar vein of timing things, Karen Walls wants to know when is the best time to transplant native flowers like asters, for example.
Great. That's a great question. So again, spring and fall, those typically are good times to divide up plants, but I'd caution you if your plant is already blooming. If your plant is in bloom, you could stress it out a bit too much by dividing it and transplanting it into a new location. So you kind of want to like figure that aspect out, which can be a little tricky with asters, right? Because they don't really emerge in the landscape till later in the season, like over summer. But if you can like remember where they are in your landscape and find them when they're small, you could then do it that way. I haven't played around with like removing the flower heads in the fall and then trying to transplant it. Again, I kind of worry that would shock the plant too much, but you could try it. And if you do, let me know how it goes. I'd be curious to hear how effective that is.
Wow, it's a lot of experimenting and trying different things for all those.
Totally.
Awesome. Okay, before we go to our next question, I think we should go ahead and do the
Yeah.
little pop quiz. So before I ask the pop quiz question, I'm going to have everybody open their chat and change that blue icon that's right above where you type your message to say everyone instead of just hosts and panelists. And then the first person to answer is going to be the winner of our prize. Again, that butterfly poster. All righty. The question is, hold on. Is everybody ready? What do pawpaw flowers smell like, and what type of pollinators are they attracting? I'm gonna go ahead and put that into the chat there. There we go. Wow, you guys are always so quick. I can't even type that fast. It looks like we have our winner, but we also have a lot of really good answers or really good listeners in this group. I'm very impressed. So Sharon Ashworth, I think, was the first one. Oh no, so sorry. So sorry, that's Sandra McKee. Sorry, Sharon, next time it's you. Um, Sandra McKee, if you would go ahead and respond to the email that you'll get after this webinar, where we'll send all of our resources with your address, we'll go ahead and get that prize to you. And good job, everybody listening.
Amazing. You
Rotten,
guys
rotten
are awesome
plants.
listeners.
All right.
Rotten meat, rotten meat. So
Rotten meat.
funny.
I know. I know that butterflies love the smell of like rotten things. Like when people are
Yeah,
researching butterflies and moths, they'll use rotten meat and rotten bananas to attract them, you
totally.
know? So
Yes, it's
nasty.
so
These
fun and
beautiful
so gross.
pollinators. So gross. Okay, Dave Gale, hello. Dave Gale would like to know what summer and fall bloomers to plant in a bluebell patch.
Ooh, that's a really great question. Okay. So bluebells come up in the spring, right? So you'll be looking at other shade species because they are typically a shade woodland type species. So I would definitely have some sedges nearby, of course. I'm a big sedge head, so those are the grass looking little plants with fine foliage. You could even introduce things like there's a later blooming larkspur. I think it's Trelease's larkspur. That's another dark purple flower that blooms later in the season. You could add things like jump seed, which is blooming, like had just finished blooming right now. It's a Persicaria species. That's super cute. You could even add things like that wild ginger around it, which those leaves stick around for quite a while. So you'll have some good visual interest there. Same with like columbine, which I love the combo of columbine and golden groundsel. I just think it's adorable. So those would be just off shooting from the hip and off the top of my head. You could also do like zigzag goldenrod if you're looking for some like yellow fall blooms. Those are found in woodlands as well, woodland edges, or elm leaf goldenrod too. So thanks for your question, Dave.
Amazing. Maddie Ball has a question. Let's see. I love this idea of applying aesthetics to your garden design. Garden design in itself is like very fun part of native gardening. And there's a lot of aesthetics like grunge and Y2K and all kinds of stuff that I would be interested in looking into. What are some of the considerations that you took when making these different palettes apart from their bloom colors and appearance? Were there anything
Yeah.
else that you considered?
Great question. So for these two particular palettes, I was thinking kind of like the overall vibe, if you will, of those aesthetics. So like Goth again is like dark and moody. It is romantic, but it's like there's some like darker undertones there. So like for example, with the larkspur, it's got this poisonous alkaline in it. The of course the visual appearance really guides a lot of these because it is about the aesthetics, like the visual qualities of it. Um, but the Blue False Indigo like had such bold, striking seed heads and such unusual leaf. So that was a reason for choosing some of those species for that category. And then just like for cottagecore, the whimsy, like these billowing, soft colors, things that make you feel a little cozy. And again, I kind of mentioned at the top of the show, like it's not just like you're saying, like the color or the time of year that they're blooming, but also how you put these together, right? And so with that cottagecore aesthetic, I'm thinking like a prairie, right? I'm like imagining like walking into a prairie. And so if you clump everything together and kind of mix things up in a little pocket garden, per se, then you can get that, you can achieve that same kind of quality. And so in our next episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in relation to like, especially the mid-century modern aesthetic, because there are some like practical ways to place plants that really lean into that more formal, kind of clean, uh, maybe geometric type aesthetic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I think those are all of the questions that we have. If you want to learn more about the mid-century modern aesthetic and the other aesthetics that Cydney has put together, join us again on October 16th at our 6 p.m. viewing time for the part two to this episode with Cydney once again. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Cydney, for an amazing presentation.
Thank you, Maddie, for being an amazing host. You're the best.
And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day and week. Yay.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.